Hey, Sister Talbot. So I'm going to make a couple of different videos reviewing the different modules to help you get ready for exam one. This is the first one. I'll try and have them posted over the next 2 days. This one, we're going to go over housekeeping, just general ideas and suggestions for preparing for the exam. And then we're going to look at the material in module one. So here we go. As you're going into this, I know a lot of times this material can be, I don't know, it's hard to place it, it's hard to conceptualize some of the chemistry, but keep in mind that these are the details that the master creator used. I loved this image in context of what we're studying as we're looking at chemistry and organic chemistry. And here's a little funny for you. God is in the details. That is certainly true. And I hope as you go through this, you realize how much more so, I don't know, maybe have added meaning to that idea that God's in the details. So some housekeeping here. This is your first exam. It's going to feel great to get this under your belt and just kind of get an idea as to how these exams work. They are multiple choice. Exams 1, 2, 3, and 4 will have 50 questions. You might see a few true false in there. Please read the questions carefully. They will be similar to quiz questions, but they won't be the same. So if you start reading a question, you're like, oh yeah, this is what it was on the quiz. I'm going to mark the same thing. If you read closer, you're probably going to find that it's a different question. So please read very carefully. Review all your notes. As students have taken this course, some of the other instructors that have taught for longer than I have said that one of the best ways to prepare is so hopefully you've really gone through, you've done the readings, you've gone through the videos, you've gone through the prepare quizzes until you get 100%. And now as you get ready for the exam, you want to go back through your notes at least, maybe even back through the readings and back through those videos just to pick up the details, because these exams, as you've probably heard, are very challenging. They're very conceptual, so not a lot of easy questions, but you'll need to understand concepts to be able to apply it in the situations suggested. And I'll talk more about that as we go through. So with Proctorio, there is no password needed. If you have trouble, use this shield. I'm going to come out of the PowerPoint for just a second and go into this part of the course material. So with Proctorio, make sure the extension's on, make sure you're using Chrome. If you have issues, there's some suggestions here. If those don't work, delete the Proctorio add-in. If you still have problems, there's this live chat that you can use. Hopefully we won't have issues, but if you continue to have issues, just let me know. You're certainly not going to fail an exam because of technical issues. As you're using Proctorio, remember to turn your phone off, put it in the other room. I've had people, somebody said, hey, I had a text person or some random person keep calling, and so I was worried, so I answered it, and I'm like, why did you have your phone there? You shouldn't have your phone there anyway. Make sure you go to the bathroom before. Make sure you're in a place where it stays quiet. But like if your dog comes in or your kid walks in the room, it's not going to automatically fail you. What happens is somebody at Proctorio has a screen, they're watching a whole bunch of students, and if they notice something like you're opening up a Google browser or it looks like you're reading notes or something, that's when they just send us an email and say, hey, you might check check the recording at 9 minutes or something, So just try not to worry too much about it. And if there's an issue that comes up during the test, shoot me an email. Let's see, any other advice? Yeah, try not to worry too much about it. And like I said, if there's something that comes up, just let me know. All right, so let's cruise back to the PowerPoint. You can use scratch paper, but pretty much you shouldn't really need anything else. Shouldn't need a calculator. You don't need a periodic table. Those things will be provided, but it has been helpful for a lot of students to use scratch paper. So just show the camera, hold it up, show them both sides, and then at the end, show it to the camera again, and that'll help make it easy to just make sure you're not cheating. And have your phone off. Don't need to memorize the periodic table. It'll be provided. The test closes Saturday night, so please make sure you do not start the test at 10:30. It will close at 11. Give yourself plenty of time. Give yourself an hour to couple. I had to look and see how long it's taken other people, but definitely give yourself plenty of time to be able to sit down and quietly take it uninterrupted, and not wait till the last minute, because inevitably technical issues or something will come up. So please make sure and plan ahead. All right, so the first thing is the terminology. This is the low-hanging fruit. These are the easy memorization questions. Everything in those first few pages of the book is fair game. So make sure you review all of that. Make sure you get these easy points, because it's basically, if you know it, you're going to get the points. So body systems, body directions, subdivisions, prefixes, suffixes, abbreviations. This is where your flashcards can be really helpful. Go through and review all of those. Again, don't miss these easy questions. Well, I say that, but you're not having to apply concepts and think through difficult scenarios. So make sure that you review these and get these points. All right, so directional terms. Be sure you can identify superior, inferior, which is basically the same as cephalic and caudal. They just like to throw extra terminology in there for us, huh? Typically, you'll see superior and inferior used more often. Anterior, posterior, same thing with ventral, dorsal. So be able to know, okay, the hand is what to the elbow? The hand is distal to the elbow. You won't have to know complicated things like anatomical parts that you haven't learned yet. It'll be more simple, like hand, elbow versus carpals, metacarpals, or whatnot. So make sure you know those. Planes and sections. Review again, here's your transverse plane. If we were cut into top and bottom portions, if we were to cut in front and back portions, that's our frontal or coronal plane or cut. And then sagittal would be through the middle. All right, homeostasis. This is a big topic. Hit homeostasis hard, go back, think through scenarios. There are a lot of questions on homeostasis, and this is one where you're going to need to apply the concept and apply what you're learning. They like to do a lot of analogies, so you'll see, okay, here's the scenario where a car is going, and you see another car that's going fast and you're trying to pass it, so it makes you go faster. Would this be positive feedback or negative feedback? So this is a concept you want to know inside and out. To go back and review. Again, homeostasis works to maintain an internal environment within physiological limits. So we don't want to get, whether it's pH, whether it's body temperature, whether it's glucose levels, too high is bad, too low is bad. We want to stay within this healthy range, close to set point. And everything within homeostasis and negative feedback, the idea is to bring us back to set point or closer to set point. Blood pressure gets too high, again, pH gets too high or too low, our body's going to compensate to bring us back to set point. If we're dealing with negative feedback, and negative feedback is that healthy, don't get caught thinking that negative is not a good thing. Negative is reversing a change, bringing us back to good. Positive feedback almost always is going to be bad or lead us to death or away from set point, except in the case of childbirth. That's the best example of positive feedback. So when we have a situation like, say, an injury where we're dealing with blood loss, negative feedback is going to try and compensate that, to decrease the amount of blood loss, increase blood flow, and keep our organs oxygenated and whatnot, and try to get us back to set point. However, negative feedback can become overwhelmed. And this is kind of, my kids are really into the Titanic right now. I don't know what caused that. They're pretty little, but most of the people who died of hypothermia. So this is a situation where these mechanisms like shivering would warm us back up, but those mechanisms were overwhelmed. So let's see here, make sure you're familiar with the terms efferent and afferent. These are going to come back again. We're going to talk about this again, but you can remember this same sensory afferent. So if it's sensory, it's information coming in, whether we're seeing it, whether we're feeling it, it's information coming in. And then this other would, at the M and the E would represent motor and efferent. So motor is we're doing something about that information. We touch a hot pan, that's sensory. The information goes to the control centers. We move our hand. That's motor when we actually move our hand. So that's the efferent. And we'll come to that more later on. All of this stuff, you want to make sure you have a nice solid foundation. It's going to pay off. It's not just like, oh, let's get through this chapter and then we won't have to work through this material again. It's going to come up again. And having a solid foundation and taking the time to really understand it now will make a big difference. Okay, so let's just walk through this. So say homeostasis is disrupted by something either being increased or decreased. That situation is monitored and receptors are going to send information to the control center, typically the brain, and then the control center is going to interpret what's going on and send a response to hopefully elicit a change that will bring us back to homeostasis. So again, be able to look at different examples and be able to identify what the receptor is, what's the control center, what's the effector, and is this a situation of positive or negative feedback. So here's a simple example with blood pressure. Pressure receptors in the walls of certain arteries detect an increase in blood pressure. So then, well, blood pressure is the force of blood on the walls. So the brain receives that information and signals to the heart and blood vessels. The heart rate slows, the arterioles dilate, and our blood pressure returns to normal. One more slide on homeostasis, and then we'll wrap this up, and then I'll get another video up on chemistry here before too long. So the feedback loop. So basically, we continue in this loop, going from a variety of variables, again, like we said, pH, blood pressure, or temperature, being measured, constantly monitored, information received, measuring those variables, and then we carry that information to a control center. Then the control center is going to send signal through the efferent pathway, which is going to hopefully cause a change that will bring us back to set point. And all of this is all negative feedback. We're coming back to set point, we're coming back to set point, back to set point. This, on the other hand, would be positive feedback if the heart rate continues to speed up. Again, the example of positive, I didn't put it in here, positive feedback would be like in childbirth, where we have the pressure of the baby's head against the cervix, which causes more oxytocin, more dilation, and we get more and more and more until that baby's finally born. So that's a beautiful example of positive feedback. But again, typically what we want is negative feedback, bringing us back to set point. So you can do this, spend the time, it's worth it, and we'll see you in our next video.